in Sumo Studios.
On the screen is Unreal Engine. And this is part 5 of our DAZ Hair series, where we're going to add wind. And let's do a quick demo. Here you can see we have the hair we've been working on, and the wind is actually working. So you can see we're getting some wind coming from one direction, and it comes consistently from that direction. So as you rotate around, the hair will blow in the wind accordingly. Very nice. And our physics is still in place, so we can jump and our hair will move around. So one of the disadvantages to using groom hair is that it doesn't actually work with the wind in the environment, in the world environment. It has to be simulated or manually maintained, it works fine. If we go into our placement actors and we type in wind, you see this wind direction. Physics will respond to this, most of your meshes and stuff that you add, but not groom hair, so we can't use that. So the question is, how do we get that hair to respond to wind? First things we want to do is type in hair, and you'll see a folder called Hair Strands Content, and then under that you'll see emitters. And there's 2 files we want to copy. These are existing emitters that we don't want to modify them. We want to copy them, make our own custom emitters. So let's type in groom. That way we can find these. We're using the groom spring system, and we're also going to be using the setup groom physics. So you want to select control, pick this one and then this one, so you have both of them selected. Then erase your search here, go back up to your folder where you want to work with your hair. I put my hair in my Unreal Leah 3 folder. So all you want to do is hold down the left mouse button, drag it over and drop it on that folder, and just say copy here. That way it makes a copy. So let's do that. And then we can just go to that folder, get rid of our filter. And now we have these 2 Niagara systems that we're going to modify. First thing we want to do is just rename these so they're unique from the originals. And I'm just going to put wind in front of this. Same thing here, just going to rename. Now we simply want to double click, go into this wind setup groom physics so we can edit. And you'll see this node graph. To zoom in, you just use your scroll on your mouse, and your right mouse button will pan. And what we're going to be doing, as you see here, you have this air velocity. We're going to be adding what's called a vector so that we can give it custom inputs. And to do that, we want to go into this map get right here, and to scroll in a little tighter, you can use the control scroll mouse wheel, and we just want to hit this little button plus sign here to add a pin, and these are our pins, and we want to type in vector, new vector, and we want to rename this. We can just hit rename pin, right click and rename pin. We're going to call this wind. Okay, now that we have this wind, we can change the size of some of this so it fits a little better. I can use the control in my wheel to move out a little bit. And remember over here, we have this air velocity. We want to drag that pin, that new input that we have. Just click here with the left mouse button, drag it over, and you'll see that air velocity. And that is the only change we need to make in this Groom Physics, the setup in this node graph. So we can go ahead and apply and save and close. Now, the next step we want to do is we want to add the data that's going to be inputted into that new input, that vector input we created, that we put in the module script, the Niagara module script. That input, we need to feed it data. And the way we do that is through this other Niagara system, which is the spring system. So let's open that up. And the first thing we want to do, this data coming in, when we set it up, we want it to loop. So to do that, we have to set a time. And think about it this way. If the wind was blowing and it did the same pattern every 3 seconds, it'd be very noticeable. Every 5 seconds, every 10 seconds, you would see the same wind pattern over and over and over. If you watch the in Unreal, when you have grass all laid out and you watch it closely, you can see the pattern repeating. So for the hair, I've been setting that loop to about 20 seconds. That way you see a pattern that's a lot less recognizable. It looks more random. So down here at the lower right, go ahead and set a value of 25. And this red line here, that's your end of your loop. Set that at 20. And now you can go ahead and pause this if you want. But this is your loop that it's looping through. And you can see here, this is our emitter, which is right here on the node graph. So there's our time. Now we just need to put data into that. And that data is that X, Y, and Z that we set up for the wind, that vector we set up. We need to feed that data into there. So it goes into that remember that node, it's the wind strength, that goes in. That's what we're setting this up for. So let's use the mouse wheel. Let's pick in this area and zoom in a little closer. And you'll notice it may stop. If you hold down the control, you can zoom in a little closer with the wheel, the mouse wheel. And the first thing we want to do is to remove the default Groom Physics, and we want to replace it with that new one that has the input. That's the one we want to use. So what we want to do is turn this off. And then right above that, you see this emitter update. Just hit a plus, and we type in wind, and we bring in that wind physics right like that. And you can see here we have this wind setup group. That's that wind vector that we set up. And here's our 3 points. Now our wind is going to be coming, east and west, or across into our face of our actor, not coming straight down or straight up or from behind and forward. So it's going to be on the y-axis. So if you were to put, a number in here, say 1500, then the wind would blow in that direction at 1500. So, but it would be a constant wind. It wouldn't be fluctuating. So we need a curve. So to do that, we want to do this little down arrow here, type in curve, and you'll see vector from curve. You'll put that in and you'll get this little chart. And then right below that, you see this curve index? Do that pull down and type in age, and you'll see there's a looped age, and that's the one we want to use. So that's all set up. Now we need to input the data that how we want our wind to act, very strong, or wavy, or intermittent. So the best way to do that is to open up this show the curve. And if yours isn't in a separate tab, you can just pull it. Yours may show up down here, and you can just drag that out if you like. It's just a bigger graph to work with. So we know this is going to be 20 seconds. That's what we want it to be. And by the way, you can go ahead and turn off the X and the Z and just leave the Y. So this very first point right here, see this time and this value? That's where we can say, yes, we want to start at 0 time, and we want to go to 1500, let's say. So that's the first point. The second point right here, we want to set it to 20 seconds. So it's at the end of our loop, and we want that to be 1500. And these little arrows right here, this is zoomed to fit, so you can see what we've done. So now we have this first point, 0 to 1500. This last point, it's at 20 and 15. Those 2 points, you want to leave exactly the same. That's your hair in its idle state. So now we go to, we can start adding our points. And all you have to do is hold down the shift. And again, this strength, this 1536, it all depends on your hair. So you can mess with it as to your heart's content to get it to work the way you want. But for now, we just want to hold down the shift key and add a bunch of points in here. And the more, I'm not really sure. Again, it depends on the hair. And I'll show you the basics of this, and then I'll show you the final one I ended up with. So once you have all these points in here, then you think about this line here is your hair in its normal position. And then this point, as you drag it up, hold it down and drag it up, that wind will start blowing against the hair. So if we take this up to, say, 2000 to 262, and then maybe this one comes down a little bit, but then it goes back up, so the wind is kind of gusting, and then it comes back to normal, and then again, you can go against the hair a little bit, and you just come up with this initial pattern. And again, each one of these is providing, even though the X and the Z are just 0, this Y is being fed into that input we created. And that's what we're going to feed it in a 20-second loop. So you can, and again, this all depends on the hairstyle, whether you have ponytails or long hair, short hair. Again, don't change this last one. We want to keep those the same. So these numbers might not match for your hair, but you'll just have to play with it. So there's that. And I tend to select all these. Let me zoom out a little bit. Again, you can use your mouse wheel to zoom out. Select all these, and I change it to a curve. Just like that looks better, and I think it causes a smoother wind blowing. So now that that's done, you just hit your save, and you close this, and you save and compile this change, and then you exit. Now we can go look at what I ended up with my graph. Let's see, right here and here. There we go. So you can see here, my point was actually 1329, starting at 0. So 1329 was where my normal state is, and then I have this wind coming in. So that's That's the pattern that we'll see once we get back here, once we're done, once we do the demo. So let me close this. Let me hit play. So with all that done, there we go. So there it is. That wind we're seeing, that's that graph of data that we're feeding into that input. And you can see it looks very nice. And if we move, it moves with the hair. So here's a very nice shot. You got the wind blowing on both sides of the hair. You can see it's very, very well done. And in case I didn't, I probably forgot to show you this. You're probably confused right now, but let me go in and show you something I forgot to do. Right here, you need to go into your hair. And remember, we changed our groom solver. This Niagara solver, we changed it. Yours is probably set to groom rods. If you've been following my demos or my tutorials, you'll want to change that to custom solver and then put that new wind, type in wind, that new spring system that we modified with that graph. We need to put that right here and then save that. And you'll probably notice that, for instance, here's mine. There's my wind, right? And now I had to change my sub-steps, my iteration count, and I also turned on this project bend and this project stretch, and I set this to 0.5 and 0.03 for the bend dampening and stiffness, the same thing down here. You may have to play with this again to get the physics, the running around physics and the wind blowing all working to where you like it. Once you do all that, you've got your hair and it works. Again, you can see here, it looks really good. It's very nice.